Everybody, it's now with Patriot Golf USA, your East Texas golf guide. I'm going to do a video real quick for everyone out there on YouTube. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to pull these iron heads, these Nikes, from a steel shaft. I'm just going to show you the tools that I use and just how I kind of go about doing this. Pulling the head, cleaning the hosel. We're going to reuse these shafts. So I'll show you what I do to prep these shafts and get them ready to be put back together again. So I've got the 4-iron right now, and before you do anything, always label the shaft. So I've got a little 4 on here. I already pulled the grip because we're doing new grips. But just label this, just so there's no confusion down the road as to what shaft goes into what head. So tools you're going to need. You're going to need a drill with a hosel cleaner right there. You're going to need a box blade to get the ferrule off. You're going to need a pick to get a lot of the epoxy out from inside the hosel, and you're going to need some heat. Little propane torch, or you can use a bigger one. I like to use the little one just because I have more control. And then it's always good to have a pair of gloves because these things can get pretty hot. So let's go ahead and just remove this iron real quick. What I do is usually pick one spot on the head and go back and forth for about 10 seconds. Make sure that you always keep the heat moving because you can burn these things. And you can see right there where it says forged. Stay away from that because if you get that too hot, you can burn the paint fill that's in there, and then in the end you've got to repaint it. So we're going around 3 times. And a lot of times what you'll see is you'll start to see a little bit of smoke coming from inside of the club. Well, maybe you can see it right now, but that's usually an indication that things are starting to break down and it's ready to go. But just keep moving back and forth. So what we'll do is we'll put it into the vice clamp here and put on some gloves. Once this thing loses its bond, it's not like it's going to just re-epoxy itself. So you don't have to be in a hurry. Grab a hold of it, twist. It's not breaking yet, so we're gonna add some more heat. I like to do it kind of in steps because you can overheat these things and you can start to burn the finish on these. So it's best to apply some heat, try to break it free. If it doesn't, pull it back off, apply a little bit more heat, and just keep going. Because really the last thing you want to do is get it to where these things are discolored, especially on these older clubs where you're not really going to polish this back out and get it looking back to normal. So we'll add a little bit more heat, put it back in our vise, crank it down, and there we go. So sorry, in the garbage can here. And so once you pull it, just start pulling a wiggle back and forth. Okay, and we're off just like that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to clean this while everything is still hot. The epoxy is still kind of broke down. So I take a pick and I get all the way to the bottom and really get all the way in there, because you're going to get some epoxy that just wants to sit at the very bottom of the hosel. So I get in there, break any chunks, and then from there take your reamer and start getting everything out from the inside of that. And I go back and forth, different directions with these reamers, and just get it kind of as clean as you can. Okay, so there we've got the head pulled. You can see inside there's nothing in there. We're gonna do a little bit more cleanup before we put this back together again. From there, I'm gonna take so we see our shaft and we can see that this has got something in the end, probably I don't know what it was, some type of plug or maybe even a counterweight. With these older clubs, you never know what you're gonna get in there. So what I like to do is let's get the ferrule off. Let's just torch it get it nice and hot, catch it on fire, take our blade, slide it off to where, you know, we can see we've got that. Now we need to figure out what's in here, and we get a pair of pliers. It looks kind of like it's just, I don't know, some kind of plug, I guess. Doesn't really look like a weight, but I guess it was a weight. Yeah, it was a weight in there. That's kind of old school. I don't know what that is, but anyway, we got that out. We've got everything out of the shaft. I can see all the way through the shaft, so we don't have any epoxy in here, and that's going to be important. Make sure there's no epoxy in here. You do not want to put this thing back together with epoxy up in here. So while it's still hot, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scrape it real quick with my blade, and I'll end up putting this on the sander and re-prepping this entire thing. And again, remember whenever we started, there was nothing prepped up here, so the ferrule was just sitting on steel, and it broke and it fell off. So when we re-prep these, we're going to sand all the way up into here. So now we've got our shaft completely raw, prepped, and we're done. So that shaft is done. We've got the 4-iron here that is cleaned out. Look down in there. We'll end up cleaning it up with acetone. These are a taper tip, so I like to run a reamer bit down in there just to make sure that everything is clean. But there's number 1 right there. So real quick, let's review. Let's go over the 5-iron. And because we're not using a shaft puller, these aren't on graphite, I don't care about the ferrule right here. You know, just leave it on there for now, and let's just get the head off of there. And again, going back and forth on one spot, avoiding any stamping, avoid any paint, so that we don't have to go back and do that again, and just keep everything moving so we don't burn these things. If you guys have never done this before, I highly recommend that you practice, because it is easy to discolor these hosels. It's very easy, and you just kind of have to know what your time limit is, you just kind of have to get a feel for it. And for me, as bad as it sounds, I can tell by the smell, because when epoxy finally breaks down, it makes a very unique smell. So a lot of times, once I smell that burnt epoxy smell, then I know that I'm getting close to these things breaking free. Okay, and there we go. And again, the other thing I found, I'm sorry that the thing is shaking there, but if you can get really quick with trying to break this thing free, you can break it free quicker that way rather than just easy pressure, because easy pressure, you're just going to turn the shaft. But if you get real quick on it, you can break it free. Then once it does, you're just pulling it off. And there we go. So nothing in the tip of this shaft, so there's a good chance that it's still in. Yep, and it's right there. It's kind of a... back in the day, they used more like hot melt. So whatever plug or weight is in here is still in there, and it's really gooey and soft, and I can feel it. This is a time where we can try to get as much out as possible with a pick. Then there are times where you have to just let it cool down and re-harden, and then take a drill bit and drill it out. It's not a difficult process. I always try to get it out first while it's soft. This one I can tell is not going to come out. So what I'm going to do is just kind of set that off to the side. Once it cools down, I'm going to put a drill bit in there and just drill it out. But we're also going to take our shaft, because we got to prep it. Let's torch it. Take our knife. There, it's off. Get any of the epoxy off now that you can. And I don't see anything, which means that there's still epoxy up in here. So again, and I can feel it right there. So what I'll end up doing is I'll put a different a drill bit into this. Usually just an 1/8 inch or maybe a 1/4 inch. Heat it up a little bit, put it back in the vise, take my drill, and just start drilling it out, and we'll be able to drill out the epoxy. But it's best to let it cool down first, and then I apply just a little bit of heat just to kind of soften the outside of it. And a lot of times you can get it to pull out, drill out into one piece, and it's always going to come out the butt end. So that's why. Another thing is always pull the grips before you pull heads, because a lot of this epoxy that's in here, because this is tapered, it's only going to come out this end. And so if you don't pull the grip, then you're going to have epoxy loose inside of the shaft, and it ain't coming out until you pull the grip. So I hope this helps somebody out there when you're trying to pull heads and redo things. I think it's a simple process, but there's a lot of steps to it, and you just have to be patient and take your time and go through those. So if you guys have any questions, please subscribe to my page and look forward to more videos. And if you have any questions or comments or anything about what I'm doing, or if you want to see something done, let me know. I do repairs every single day, and if you want me to make a video on it, I'll be more than happy to do that. So everybody, take care. Bye.